Hello, welcome to Horror Cult Trash Over, the show that discusses all the masterpieces and trash pieces of genre cinema. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
Yes, we're cheating a little. I know it's May, and this is the finale to Found Footage Month. But you know what? We're busy bitches here on the Horror Cult Trash Over podcast. We've got a lot going on. But we still care about our listeners, so we're still here. And we're still delivering the goods. And by the goods, I mean films in which people pick up cameras and get in sticky situations. We've had a full month of it. Chris, are you happy it's over?
I am happy it's over. I am. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, no, I'm happy it's over.
Well, thank you for your honesty.
I don't have to explain myself.
No?
I'm just gonna tell you.
No?
I'm pleased. That's not to say I didn't have a fun time with these films.
Yeah. I mean, I think the good outweighed the bad for most of the month.
Yes. But I'm pretty sure if we have found footage month next year, it's gonna be the dregs, the bottom of the barrel stuff.
Not necessarily. There's still some good stuff out there.
I feel like we've discussed probably my favourites.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some you haven't seen yet.
Okay.
That could end up being your favourites.
Yeah, real groundbreakers.
One of them directed one of the films today. One of the directors.
Oh, wow.
The Poughkeepsie tapes. But yes, Found Footage Month may return, ? We'll see what happens. But for now, we're ending things on a very, very positive note. A film that's interchangeable as the best found footage film ever made for me.
Okay.
But
first of all,
it's original versus remake, and with a masterpiece comes a fine film, actually. So yeah, nice little change. But first,
yes,
what's new with Chris and Gary? The best of the week.
Best of the week
is one of the best of the year. A film that I'm sure everyone has heard of by now. It is Challengers. Oh my god.
I completely agree. Loved it. I thought it was engrossing.
Yeah.
I thought it was so hip and stylish.
Yeah.
And everything that the Scream 2 VHS cover exclaimed it to be.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Loved the soundtrack. Loved the performances. Loved the style. I loved the choices for cinematography. I loved that it didn't mind being, a little gay.
A little?
A bit campy. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah. It's very fucking gay. That's all I'll say. But yeah, Luca Guadagnino has done it again. Possibly his best film. I mean, that's what I think from what we've seen.
I would agree. Yes. Yeah. I agree.
If you ever wanted to see how many different ways you can film a tennis match, this is your film.
Yeah, absolutely. Loved the style choices. Really did enjoy the way the film looked, and it helped make it a really engrossing feature film.
Yeah. And a film for our worst of the week, a film where the stylistic choices were the opposite end of things. Boy Kills World.
Boy Kills World. I completely agree. It's the worst film of the week. And if we'd watched more films for the first time, it still probably would have been the worst film of the week.
No, absolutely.
It's not been a big week for us watching films for the first time. We've had lots of rewatches. But I found with Boy Kills World, I feel maybe I'm being a little harsh because this film wasn't made for me. This isn't my kind of film.
By all accounts, I've seen reviews from people it is made for, and they're saying the exact same.
I think so, and that's valid, and my opinion's valid as well. But it really, I feel, was for the is it an 18?
It's an 18.
18. But it's an 18 rated film or should I say R-rated film designed for people who aren't necessarily old enough to watch it. That's
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
I felt. It's one of those
yeah.
films that I feel plays to a much younger demographic
Mm-hmm.
than its age rating would suggest.
Yeah.
Now with R ratings, unless things have changed, which I don't think they have, with R ratings, somebody over the age of 18 can take kids to go see it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's one of those kind of
Mm-hmm.
films where it plays to a younger audience.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very tiring.
It
The
is.
jokes are very tiring.
I mean, to sum it up, the problem is there is a stupid voiceover that is in place throughout the entire film. Like the serious scenes, the lot, it's always there, and that ruins the film completely. Like it's a tonal disaster because although there are parts that really come across like it's made for kids, the voiceover itself feels like it's in something made for kids. But then you'll have like a real like serious death scene or a bunch of people dying that you should be taken seriously, but then it's like, well, this voiceover's still here, so how am I meant to feel about this? Like what and I can make my own mind up and tell you how I'm supposed to feel about it, but it's a little difficult when you've got a stupid voice like well that happened in the background. It's like it's so annoying.
It's the joke wears thin very quickly.
Yeah.
I feel like, and this may not make any sense, but it makes sense to me. It gives me Fortnite energy.
Oh my god, that's a perfect comparison.
Yeah, it gives Fortnite. It gives the kid doing that silly dance.
Yeah.
It gives Twitch energy.
Yeah.
And that's just not me.
It's Fortnite by way of John Wick.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really the best comparison.
Yeah. And to be fair, we only watched it because we wanted to kill some time.
Yeah.
I usually wouldn't go out of my way to watch that kind of film. So I feel a little harsh. But, films...
It's shit. It's
there should be
as that.
Something in every film for me because I'm the center of the universe.
Sometimes I could say it's just shit.
Yeah.
But honourable mentions, something that certainly isn't shit. Yes, Madame.
Oh, what an enjoyable film! What great action, and Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock. Oh, flawless.
Yeah.
I mean, the hairstyles were maybe a choice.
I wasn't
sign of the
mad.
Times.
Princess Diana, Cynthia Rothrock.
Cynthia Rothrock. Well, yeah, probably more than the hair was the dubbing choice for Cynthia Rothrock.
Yeah.
It was given a very posh English accent.
And she had the Princess Diana hair to go with it.
And so it was a bit like Princess Diana had gone off and learnt martial arts, which I'm living for.
I need to see more Cynthia Rothrock. For me, an honourable mention is Simon vs. the Homo sapien Agenda, the book. The book that Love, Simon is based on. A case of a 5-star duo for me, film and book. I mean, I thought the book was absolutely fantastic. Worked for reasons that work for separate reasons to why the film works. And there are certain things that I kind of wish were in the film, but also a lot of things I'm glad weren't in the film, and vice versa as well. The film tries to be more dramatic and aimed towards a younger audience, and you know what? If you're gonna make big screen queer films, and you want to aim them at a younger audience, I think that's fantastic. And I'm sure I've probably spoken about it on it before how much I love the film. And of course, Love Victor was really good as well, the TV series. But yes, it's a really, really great book. A lot more grounded and less dramatic. It's dramatic, but not as dramatic as the film.
Yeah.
But yeah. Speaking of dramatic, no. Yeah, it's kind of dramatic.
Yeah.
It's a very dramatic film.
Speaking of the big square, big screen,
Big,
big square.
thank you. We're taking things back with found footage history. We're taking it all the way back to 2007. Now, we've already discussed this period when we were talking about Paranormal Activity. This is the year that Paranormal Activity came out of festivals. But another film came out and kind of gave the found footage subgenre a jolt of electricity, a bit of lightning to bring it back to life for a short while before Paranormal Activity, before Cloverfield.
Did it?
It did. I mean, I'd say it's very much a cult film now, but I remember hearing about this when it was released and seeing it within the year when it was released, and oh my god, this is a gem.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, and I don't always remember correctly, but I feel like it had kind of the same energy around it as Ring,
Yeah.
um, where it's this foreign language film that's really pushing boundaries within horror. And then obviously the inevitable remake comes out, and the remake does well.
Yeah.
From a financial point of view. So there are probably a great number of people who watched The Ring before they watched Ringu.
Yeah.
Who watched Quarantine before they watched Wreck.
Yeah. And that is what we're discussing today. We're discussing Wreck from 2007, and the poll results are nice and simple: 100% for the original.
Yes.
Which is correct. A spoiler warning is now in effect. So, fun story with this film. I remember my dad getting it on DVD, and just one night, late on Saturday night, we put it on. He fell asleep. I was watching it on my own. Lights off, and honestly, this is still within my top 10 scariest films ever made, and it fucking shook me up, especially that ending. As we've probably discussed with previous podcast episodes, one of my fears, I think, when it comes to horror films is like faces that are not entirely natural, and like masks, and like Leatherface, for example, was probably the first thing that ever scared me. So it kind of stems from there. So when I saw the ending of this film and that girl looks the way she does, oh my god, it scared the life out of me. It took me a while to go to bed after that. And still to this day, I think it still holds up so well.
Yeah.
Your first time was watching it with me, right?
It was, yeah. I have no history with this film. I had heard of it. I wasn't particularly interested in it until I met you and you put it on, and it was thrilling.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think it's a great film. Spoiler alert for the end. I genuinely think it's a great film. I think it deserves to be spoken in the same sentence as Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
When it comes to found footage and real trendsetters within found footage. Now I mean found footage as a whole, because I think maybe more than any other film, this film influenced all the YouTube videos.
Yes, yeah, any that included night vision. I always forget that this film started the night vision thing.
Yeah, but the shaky, runny. What did
Blair
I
Witch?
see? I didn't think Blair Witch was so runny. Shake the camera close.
Maybe not
there
runny,
are
but
close-ups,
shaky.
but
Yeah.
I find with Wreck more of the close-ups of creatures.
Yeah.
Like when you get a cheapo, shitty kind of looking witch in the road that runs towards the screen. That I think of Wreck maybe more than I think of Blair Witch. I find with Blair Witch it's the fear of what you can't see.
Yeah.
Whereas with Wreck, you see it all.
Yeah.
And I feel that's the energy that's brought to, and there's thousands of them, so they differ immensely. But with these YouTube videos, I feel they kind of show more than they hide.
Yeah, No, I agree. I mean, I think this film had an impact on horror as a whole, whether it's
Mm.
on the small screen, whether it's on the big screen. I think many films use this as an inspiration. I mean, particularly obviously within found footage, it's yeah. I mean, but then you also get films like The Sadness as well, which I think definitely may have borrowed a thing or two from this because it's kind of a zombie film. It's kind of not a zombie film.
Mm.
It's that weird grey area where it's like, I mean, technically they're acting like zombies, but realistically, this is all spawning from a possession. So is it possessions that are going on here, but are also becoming infected? So it's kind of like, it's an interesting lore that never really, I don't know, there isn't really a specific term set out for it.
No.
Um, which I like.
I feel like this is, and it's a film that I've only just realised that is, I feel may have been an influence. 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
It feels like an intersection between 28 Days Later and Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
I feel like it's brings those two together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'd say this is probably one of the last, probably not the last, but amongst the remaining few word of mouth films before the internet really took off.
Okay.
Because I mean, I know for certain I told anyone I could about this film, and you know, if I ever had a chance to put a film on for friends, this would always be one of my go-tos.
Yeah, that guy.
I'm that guy. But I do remember like people started to know about this. Like everyone started to know about it. And then of course it became so popular
Because of you.
not just because of me, but I may have played a part in it. But then so popular to the point we get a remake a year later for people who don't want no subtitles.
Yes, we will get into that.
Yeah. So it's written and directed by Jean Balaguerro, who did The Nameless, O.T. La Pellicula, Darkness, Fragile, Rec 2 and 4, Muse, The Vault, and more. And co-directed by Paco Plaza, who did O.T. La Pellicula, Rec 2 also, but also Rec 3, A Christmas Tale, Small Gorge Trauma, Veronica, Eye for an Eye, The Grandmother, and more. Veronica, what a disappointment that was.
Veronica was one of, and was it a Netflix film?
That was the first of those Netflix films where people were like, people had to turn this off.
Yeah,
it's so scary. So, and I think this is when we first got together and we were like, oh, okay, let's give this a go then. Let's watch it. And just really bored.
Yeah, people switched it off because they were bored. They were fed up.
It's co-written by Louis A. Bodejo, who did Offer into the Storm, The Legacy of the Bones, Rec 3, Genesis, The Endless Trench, Painless, A Christmas Tale, Violet, and more. This was made on a budget of $2 million, and it made $32.5 million worldwide.
Nice.
I mean, well, yeah, another found footage film made on a minimal budget and went on to be something huge. This had a stage show at one point.
Stage show?
Yeah, its own scare maze. And it was one of the major inspirations for the first-person survival horror game Outlast, which is the scariest game I've ever played.
Okay.
The game explores lines between science and religion, much like the Rec series does with medical science, viruses, and possession. And the POV in the game was also inspired by the shaky found footage style used in Rec. You could have night vision on Outlast as well.
There we go.
Yeah, let's talk about our first feature presentation.
¿Te atreves a experimentar el miedo en tiempo real? Rec, ya en cines.
Reporter Angela Vidal. She's played by, because this is an interesting one, so Manuela Velasco.
Yeah.
So we know her from Almodovar's Laws of Desire when she was a young girl. But she did go on to become a news reporter.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like Sarah Green.
Ghostwatch. Yeah.
Not that I think anyone watched Rec and thought it was real, but it's a bit like Sarah Green's casting in Ghostwatch, where
it definitely adds to it.
Maybe doesn't work for us necessarily because we're like, it's the girl from Laura Desire.
Yeah.
But for a Spanish audience, they recognize her as a TV presenter, so it
Yeah.
brings a little realism to it.
Like Holly Willoughby doing it in the
Yes.
UK.
But also they give her a different name, so she is still acting.
Yes. Yeah.
If maybe she had the same name, but it is what it is. So reporter Angela Vidal and her cameraman Pablo are covering the night shift in one of Barcelona's local fire stations for the television series While You're Sleeping. Now this is a sort of documentary TV series. It's got nothing to do with the Sandra Bullock film.
It has not, no. So like other found footage films, the actors were never given the script in its entirety. So none of them knew of their character's fate, sometimes not until the day they were actually filming their scenes. And this meant the actors were more often than not stressed, nervous, and apprehensive on the day of filming. Ideal qualities for a film like this, of course. It's also made and shot in real locations. No sets were built to make this film. When it came to casting, the directors deliberately chose actors who were not familiar to help make the piece more realistic, and also actors who were good at improvisation. And I think that really benefits this film a lot.
I think so. I do think there's a few characters who only have 2 or 3 lines overall. Yeah. So I think the actors playing them kind of knew they were going to die at some point.
Yeah, I think
I've only got 3 lines. Oh, I hope I make it till the end.
They were originally going to go with policemen as well, but they decided that firemen were more popular and accepted by the general public.
That makes sense. So we open with them desperately waiting for a call for something exciting to cover. And it's a bit of a sausage fest at the station. There are only 2 women. They're on the front desk. Angela says, "Finally, women in the fire station," but they don't want to be on camera. They don't want to talk. But Angela's sporting some pigtails.
She is.
We all make choices. These are a choice.
Really?
No, I'm not sure. I get the feeling that Angela, she wants to be a more respectable journalist.
Yeah.
And I feel like pigtails maybe aren't the best choice.
Well, yeah, maybe.
For that. I feel like this sort of flimsy, I suppose, what would we describe it? The one show style magazine program, journalism, maybe not be her thing. Pigtails aren't going to help. After an intense game of basketball, the firehouse receives a call about an old woman, Mrs. Izquierdo. Excuse me. I do apologise. It might be embarrassing.
It's not. You've heard me try and pronounce names. It's not.
Mrs. Izquierdo, who is trapped in her apartment. Angela and Pablo accompany 2 of the firefighters, Alex and Manu, to the apartment building on Rambla de Catalunya. So we're introduced to a few of the residents who are concerned about the screaming and yelling from the elderly woman's apartment. We get a potential queer icon until he lets us down later. Spoiler alert.
It's such a shame.
Caesar, he notices he's on camera and he's got a little mustache. He's given a bit John Waters, just a little bit.
He's a very sophisticated man.
He's very sophisticated.
He's very sharply dressed.
Yes.
10 out of 10 moustache.
He notices he's on camera. Straight away, he makes sure that he and his silk scarf are looking their best.
Yeah. I think it was confirmed in the documentary as well that he is gay and fancied Pablo.
Okay.
We never get to see Pablo, so we can't really judge that. But
well, I just got the impression that he wanted to make sure he looked his best on camera, and that comes back later.
The building is the Sedi Matexa building, which is in Catalonia, where it's set, in Barcelona, and it's an actual building.
Yeah.
It's not sets, it's all an actual building, and it was unfortunately assaulted by a group of youngsters in 2007 after the film became a hit. But now it's often visited by tourists and fans.
Yeah, it's a great looking building, beautiful.
Yeah.
You don't get to see a huge amount of the interiors in great detail. But that sort of central staircase,
Yeah.
really beautiful. So the elderly woman becomes aggressive and attacks one of the police officers, biting his neck. And I love this scene.
Yeah.
It's very intense. It gets straight to it. Thank God. You know, there's this elderly
Yeah.
woman. She is clearly in distress. She's kind of covered in blood.
Mm-hmm.
She's in her kind of nightwear, really.
Yeah.
And it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that really got me when I first watched it, because you kind of, the word of mouth goes around about a film. You know, you hear it's supposed to be good. I guess in the 2000s there was a sort of standard set that it's either going to be torture porn or, you know, just something basic. So when this first happened and you see her the way she is, it's really genuinely scary.
Yeah, yeah.
And May is Hagsploitation Month, so happy Hagsploitation Month.
Kind of. But yeah, it generally feels out of nowhere as well.
Yeah.
And you know I love it when films like this just get straight to it.
Yeah, and I love it when horror films are created by being in a situation that shouldn't lend to a horror film. Like, these are just firefighters going to help someone who's stuck in an apartment, and shit goes crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, not everyone knows that they're in a horror film.
No one knows they're in a horror film.
So the crew find that the police and military have sealed off the building and trapped them inside. And this is a great way, I feel, for them setting up the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And giving the crew a reason to film, because it's found footage. So we need a reason for them to film constantly. But I think it's also an interesting way of keeping the budget down a little bit and keeping all the action into one enclosed space. The idea that the government know what's happening gives meaning to this footage. And I believe Angela assumes this could be her big journalistic break. So she's pushing to, you know, we have to let everyone know what's going on here. Potentially there's a big conspiracy that they're involved in, and also this could be her big break. This could be the moment, you know, her Woodsboro Murders novelization, you know, turned into wreck. Well, I suppose Quarantine would be the title. If they did do Stab, it would be Quarantine. So as the residents begin to panic, Alex, who remained upstairs with the old woman, is thrown over the staircase and critically injured. Love this fantastic jump scare. Genuinely feels out of nowhere.
Yeah. The best kind of jump scare.
Yeah, really, really loved it.
And when they were filming the scene, not a single actor knew that was going to happen. So all the reactions are real reactions.
I don't know if I'd appreciate that, but okay. The elderly woman kills a girl, and the remaining officer, Sergio, is forced to shoot her. Again, very scary. Whoever plays Mrs. Esquerdo is very good.
Yes.
Very good at playing creepy. Sergio, after shooting her, has a real issue with the camera filming everything. He feels a need to protect the residents, but also protect whatever conspiracy may or may not be going on. So he's still within his right. And I find this interesting. And it happens in a lot of films, a lot of horror films. When shit hits the fan, people still tend to stay within their roles.
Yeah.
I mean, we just watched Dawn of the Dead again for the 100th time recently, and it's the same kind of thing. You know, the police officer still acts like a police officer, even when things seem apocalyptic. You know, I love that. I love that in films. He's also the only one with a firearm, and he pulls it out to stop Angela, Pablo, and Manu from trying to leave. So he has no idea what's going on.
No.
He's as clueless as everyone else. But he kind of takes charge to a certain degree. So Angela and Pablo begin interviewing the residents, because they're going to make a documentary. They might as well make a documentary. Guillem is a doctor who's trying his best to treat Alex and the bitten police officer. Abuela and Abuelo, which I get this, that I've got these names from IMDb. That's obviously translated into English as grandmother and grandfather.
Yes.
They're a bickering older couple.
Yeah. they can't be interviewed without arguing.
No. But also, the life of a straight couple. There's also an Asian couple. The wife being Japanese and the husband being Chinese, with their young son. And they also like a bit of a bicker as well.
They do, yeah. I mean, I do appreciate the Japanese woman who they're not given names.
They're not given names.
Japanese woman and Chinese man, literally. And so she's just saying about the fireman falling to his death, and he's just there telling her off in the background.
Yeah.
Poor Angela's not getting anything good from this.
She's
at
not.
all.
She's just getting bickering couples. So hopefully, things will liven up a little bit, so she can get her Pulitzer Prize. There's also a sick little girl named Jennifer. Her mother, Marie Carmen, claims that she has tonsillitis, and she says that her dog Max is at the vet.
Her mother is dying to get on camera. She is dying for her 5 minutes of fame. She will not let Jennifer speak for herself. She is trying to steal her screen time. This is her moment. Look at her. Here's her stage.
Her mother is a little skittish.
Yeah.
She's giving Barbara from Night of the Living Dead energy.
Yeah.
She's a bit like, get yourself together, love. But I wonder if this dog Max will play into the plot later.
I do wonder.
Caesar is also interviewed, and
yeah, so Caesar's interviewed, but also a woman who is claimed she's going to sue. She's going to sue the bitch.
Who's that?
So I didn't actually get her name, but there's another woman. It may have been Jennifer's mum, but it didn't look like her. But there's another woman who's interviewed. She's like, I'm going to sue. I'm going to sue. I'm going to take the owners of this building to the papers. But yes, Caesar gets his moment.
He does. And he very sadly blames the Asian couple.
Yeah.
For everything that's happening. Specifically, is it the raw fish?
Because they eat raw fish with the door open, and because they were speaking their own language, he's blaming it on them. He doesn't know he's being filmed, and then he's told he's being filmed, and he's like, shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
True to form, he's very concerned about how he will look on camera. And he says, when are we starting? And Angela says, we did. He says, why didn't you tell me? Don't you see my face is shiny? And then he eventually decides that the side profile would look best.
Yeah, it's like this, Pablo? Good.
A health inspector in a hazmat suit arrives to help, but the injured become extremely aggressive. This is secretly filmed by Pablo and Angela, and it is, again, very creepy.
With some fantastic practical effects.
Yeah, absolutely. The health inspector eventually explains that they are infected with a virus similar to rabies. The disease was traced back to a dog in the building. Dum, dum, dum. And Angela realizes it must be Max. Why is Angela the only one realizing she is? Gasp. Jennifer, now infected, bites her mother's face and flees. So again, I think there's also a Night of the Living Dead influence here.
Yes.
Definitely. And again, maybe Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead with the military involvement. We, embarrassingly enough, we watched a whole documentary about the making of the film.
We did.
But for the love...
I mean, I'm sure they mentioned they were influenced.
Yeah, but I cannot, for the life of me, remember if they mentioned George Romero.
I'm sure
but
they
I
did.
feel like George Romero was a huge influence.
But everyone should watch it. It's called Wreck Terror Without Pause, and I don't know if it's even been released yet. But when it is released, check it out. It's very good.
That's Pause, Pause.
Yes, Terra Sin Posa.
Not as in pause. As in...
Well.
Sergio handcuffs Marie to the stairs, and they find Jennifer, but she bites Sergio.
This is top tier creepy kid in a horror film.
This works in this scene because we don't get to see too much of her.
Yeah.
I find that when we have the creepy kids, especially when they're
Mhm.
made up to look like creepy kids, and they're forced to act creepy
Mhm.
without really, because obviously you don't want to tell kids too much about what's going on, kind
Mhm.
of thing. Um, but when you're trying to make them creepy, it feels a little forced. It feels a little hokey, a little
Mhm.
cringy at
Yeah.
times if the acting's not the best. So I find in a scene like this, what makes it better is that we barely see her.
Yeah.
Um, because the camera work is, here, there, and everywhere,
Mhm.
which is the point,
Yeah.
But yeah, it works very
It's
well.
great, and it's another great jump scare as well, because again, so many of the things in this film just happen out of nowhere. There's no build up to this. There are moments where there are build ups and it's expertly done, but in this scene especially, she's just talking.
Yeah.
She's just talking and just trying to defend herself from having this dog that's going around giving everyone rabies. So, and then she just bites her fucking face out of nowhere. But it's great, and the makeup on Jennifer looks so good. She looks so scary. The way she's lit as well, with the torches and the camera light, and especially when she's taking the bite as well out of the cop. The way that's lit with the backlight, it looks so good.
So the infected break down the warehouse door that they were locked in, and more of the residents are bitten and infected. So this is the moment where the shit really hits the fan.
Yeah.
And the residents are bitten and they become infected and this, that, and the other, and everyone's running around, everyone's screaming, everyone's shouting, everyone doesn't know what to do. Caesar gets a proper death scene as he's grabbed through a glass panel.
Yeah.
Quite appreciated that.
It's what he deserves.
It's what he deserves. Angela, Pablo, and Manu are the remaining 3 survivors, and they set out to find a key that will allow them to escape the building via a large drain in the basement. We are now in classic found footage territory here. We've got jump scares, dark rooms lit by the camera, extreme close-ups. We get our beloved characters or characters return in infected zombie form. It's classic found footage here.
And what's impressive is, technically, this film creates a lot of those ground rules and creates this what we now know as classic found footage thing.
Yeah,
because when you think about it, Blair Witch, which was the exact kind of style of handheld camera trying to film a documentary, was all out in the woods. So there are bits here that remind me of the ending of Blair Witch.
Yeah,
but a lot of this is creating the groundwork and doing it in such a really great way that hasn't really been recreated to this effect since.
Yeah, Blair Witch is absolutely what you don't see.
Yeah.
You never see the Blair Witch, which is, as we discussed in our episode, a good thing. This, I find this is the film that I think about when films are described as roller coasters.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good term. I know Martin Scorsese said it as a condescending way about the Marvel Cinematic Universe or whatever. I think Wreck is the perfect roller coaster movie. Ghost Train, roller coaster, Passage del Terra, those walkthrough things. I feel like this film, more than any other I can think of, epitomizes that scare, that roller coaster. Things come out from nowhere unexpectedly, extremely loud. The camera is going wild in the aisles. You can't focus on anything for more than 2 seconds. It's bloody. It's over the top. It brings you into the action. We've seen this on the big screen, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
I feel like this would be great on IMAX.
Yeah.
Really brings you into the action. This is what found footage is meant to do.
Yeah.
Brings you into it. and makes you feel part of the action as if you're going through a scare maze.
Yeah. Well, the tagline for the film is "Experience Terror." That's exactly what it does.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it does. I feel like it pushes the audience to the limits of how much they can take from what they expect from a horror film, and it, found footage wise, it's breaking boundaries whilst doing that.
Yeah.
You've got two extremes with found footage. You've got the Blair Witch Project, which shows the absolute minimum. Then you've got this that shows everything. Both limits work. Both of those things work.
Yeah.
And both, like I said, set the groundwork for what was to come after it, but really set that groundwork to the point that it just hasn't been recreated. Even in a film that recreates this entire film, couldn't recreate the intensity, the atmosphere, and everything going on here.
Yeah. Manu is bitten, forcing Angela and Pablo to take refuge in the penthouse. They discover a tape recorder that explains that the penthouse owner, an agent of the Vatican, was charged with the task of isolating an enzyme carried by a young Portuguese girl named Tristana Medeiros, whose symptoms suggested demonic possession. The enzyme mutated and became contagious. The agent sealed Tristana in the house to die.
Yeah. And seriously, we've already gave a spoiler warning, but if you haven't seen this film and you don't know what happens next, do not listen to this.
Yeah.
Go and watch this film and then come back.
We get an infected boy who damages Pablo's camera and he activates the night vision.
Perfect jump scare.
This
still
is
gets me.
A classic jump scare.
Yeah.
Classic. This has been recreated 1,000 times on YouTube. This one jump scare. Incredibly effective. Maybe the best of the film.
It's between this and the Fireman Fallen.
And the Fireman.
Yeah, it's definitely between the two.
But he's, literally looking around, popped his head around, and this boy completely out of nowhere swipes. We've seen it. You've probably, if you haven't seen Wreck, you've still probably seen this. There are films now that are still doing this same thing.
Yeah, the build-up is perfect. It's just silence. Absolute silence. And it's such a slow pan around before it happens. And it's just so jarring.
Yeah.
Because obviously, we think they're alone in this attic.
Well, we're waiting for Tristana.
Yeah.
We're not waiting for some creepy kid to swipe
the
camera. And now when we see Tristana as she emerges and searches the penthouse for food, it's shocking.
It's one of the scariest things in any film I've ever seen.
Really unsettling, the way that she looks.
Yeah.
And knowing the history beforehand as well, and knowing that she has just been left there to die and has become this... I don't even know how you would describe it.
It's ghoulish.
Yeah, but it's...
Yeah, like she's just barely skin but all bones.
But almost inhuman.
Inhuman. Like her face is long and it's absolutely terrifying. And I think because all of this was shot in real darkness, by the way, using the night vision, using the infrared camera. So the actors had no idea what was going on. They couldn't see a thing. Only through the lens. Which I think you can tell when watching the film. You can tell from Pablo, he's obviously, we never see the guy, but from his voice alone and trying to keep quiet, you could tell he can see what's going on.
Yeah.
And because of that natural darkness that is only shown through infrared, it kind of looks like when you're in bed at nighttime and you can see the street lamps through the window, that natural darkness, and it feels like you're in somewhere familiar because it's such a closed-in environment. It's just an attic, and you can see a bit of not daylight. You can see a bit of light coming from somewhere. So at first you can only see the silhouette of Tristana, but then when she's revealed and you can see her at night vision, it is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And the makeup effects, oh my god, they're phenomenal.
For such a low budget, it looks great. So Pablo is killed by Tristana, and seeing Tristana eating Pablo Angela panics and drops the camera. She is then dragged into the darkness, screaming, and the film ends.
Yeah, the iconic ending shot of her being dragged away.
Yeah.
And the bit of dialogue after she's dragged away, we get it repeating. We have to tape everything, Pablo, for fuck's sake. Why they did that, I don't know, but it's kind of like you really did tape everything.
Well, I think they knew that almost 20 years later, two gay guys in Salford would be discussing when they should have put the camera down.
But more iconic than that dialogue is the song Voodoo by Carlos Ann, which is so out of place.
It is, yeah.
But in the best way.
It doesn't quite fit.
There was an alternative ending where Angela left the attic and is attacked by Mrs. Izquierdo. Glad that didn't happen because, I mean, the ending's perfect. There's another one of her coming downstairs in the dark, trying to make it through the infected residents whilst they're in a numb state, and then she's killed by one of them.
Oh.
I mean, the idea of them just being there, just standing like that's creepy. But still, this ending, it's on par with Blair Witch for best ending of a found footage film.
Yeah. I'm assuming that there wasn't an intention for a sequel. That it was just meant to be.
There was no intention for a sequel.
She was killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
Thank God they did, though, because Rec 2 is incredible.
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah.
That shot, though, iconic. So iconic that the remake decided to put it on the poster.
Why you'd put the ending on the poster? Ridiculous. Yeah, but that's Rec, and that is one of my favourite horror films ever. It's fantastic. It's how you do modern horror the right way. If you're going to do found footage, I love it.
Modern?
Well, it feels weird not... I can't call it classic horror because I feel too old.
Yeah.
So I'm still going to say modern.
In terms of found footage, and this is the last time you'll hear me say this, I'm personally not the biggest fan of found footage films. You all know that by now. But I think this is one of the best examples of found footage.
Yeah.
Because it does exactly what I need it to do. It isn't, a long film.
It's not fucking around. It's only
get straight to it.
It's like an hour and 10, hour 18 around that time. And it's not fucking around. Blair Witch, Paranormal Activity, you've got so many scenes of people just talking to each other with the camera out and everything. This is none of that. This is go, 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 go from the get-go.
I don't need to know your history.
No.
And that's not to say that I wouldn't appreciate a little bit of character development. Maybe from the characters we're meant to feel more about.
Yeah, maybe have a little montage of her shows or something like that.
They get to know Andrew a little bit more because she is our final girl. Because, we don't see Pablo. He's behind the camera. So I would have liked a little bit of that. But overall, I think it does what needs to be done with found footage. It uses the found footage formula correctly.
Yeah. Because
it brings you in on the action. It makes you feel part of it. All that business.
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that brings us to the remake, Quarantine from 2008. Now,
this is the one with Keanu Reeves.
No.
Oh, no, it's Constantine.
Yeah. So I get that some people can't read subtitles. I get that there's accessibility issues there sometimes, and some people can't. But this is for a personal message for the people who can read subtitles and just can't be asked. What the fuck? Seriously, this film exists because of you. Because of those people who are like, oh no, I don't do subtitles. Watch and read at the same time. No, seriously.
But then just dub it.
Yes.
Just use the dubbing.
Rec is fucking phenomenal. It never, ever needed a remake. It's still to this day in 2024 does not need a remake. It is fine the way it is. But a year later, this is in the 2000s, so prime time for people who can't be asked with subtitles looking for an American alternative. The Ring, The Grudge, The Eye, Dark Water, One Missed Call, Shutter, usually Asian horror. And something like Martyrs and Inside, they didn't get remakes until years later.
So would you say Martyrs and Inside are proper cult films?
No, yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, I suppose this definitely took off a lot quicker than those films. And so within a year, we had Quarantine, written and directed by John Eric Dowdle, who did The Dry Spell, Full Moon Rising, The Poughkeepsie Tapes, one of the better found footage films.
Oh, nice.
Devil, As Above, So Below, another good found footage film.
Is that the one with Pink?
No, the other Catacombs film. We did watch it. No Escape, Waco and Waco, The Aftermath, and Joe Pickett. So, yeah, they picked the right guy. They picked the guy who did the Poughkeepsie Tapes, and it shows, because this isn't a bad film.
No.
I'm, bitched about it, and my point stands, it doesn't need to exist, but it's not a bad film. It's definitely made by someone who knows his found footage shit, but also it's modelled entirely off of the one before. So it's a near shot-for-shot remake. And in discussion to leading up to the release and in the behind the scenes, the filmmakers referred to the film as an entirely new story. Hun, changing the location does not make it a new story. Putting in America does not make it a new story. This is the same story.
It is.
This is the exact same. Yes, there are some changes, but at its core, this is the same story.
Yeah, and it's essentially this film's existence is because you couldn't give Rec a wide release in America.
No.
Because it was a foreign language film.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So they bought the rights to it, they Americanized it, which made it more accessible to an audience who aren't inclined to go see foreign language cinema. And that's it, and they just, for how long we were doing this for?
5 years.
Podcast, 5 years. And we've been doing Original versus Remake pretty much the whole time. This is the first time, really, where the two films are so similar that it almost feels shot for shot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's why we wouldn't do Psycho, because there's even less changes in that.
Yeah.
Like, that is literally just one change, and it's it is Norman Bates having a wank. So there we go, we've just covered the Psycho remake. But yeah, again, this isn't bad, but this is just doesn't need to happen.
It needs to justify its existence,
yeah.
and I just don't think it does.
It doesn't. It's co-written by Drew Dowdle, so I think he may be John Eric Dowdle's brother.
Okay.
And he wrote all the same projects that he did. Budget $12 million. They had an extra $10 million on, and you can tell. And it made $41.3 million at the box office. And both directors of the original film have expressed their dissatisfaction with this film.
Okay.
They are not fans. But I mean, I guess they're not, because
I'm assuming they didn't make a lot of that.
They're credited. It's based on the film by them. But
I'm assuming their piece of that box office pie wasn't as big as they hoped.
Yes. Yeah. And I completely understand their frustration, considering, it's a real indie film, a real, guerrilla filmmaking kind of thing, Rec. They did it on a small budget with a small group of people. It's their baby. It took off. They weren't expecting it. It was originally meant to go straight to video, but it took off, and it's their special thing. And then they're just like, okay, we're going to build a set. We're going to get Hollywood actors.
Yeah.
And we're going to add 10 million, and we're going to make it American.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how that plays out in our second feature presentation.
Apartment for rent.
It's here on the second floor on the right.
Quiet neighbors.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am.
Pets okay.
Oh my God!
24-hour security.
Do not try to leave the building.
Long-term lease available.
They're not gonna let us out of here alive, are they?
Quarantine. Rated R. Now playing in theaters everywhere.
I'm going to skip through a lot of this because, as we've said, shot for shot. So, on the evening of March 11th, 2008, news reporter Angela Vidal, same name, and her cameraman, who is now Scott Percival, are filming their report on the night shift at the Los Angeles Fire Department. And the show is called The Night Shift this time around. So, a little change. Angela's serving Big Hoop Energy.
She is. She's got the big hoop earrings in.
Yeah, leather jacket, and she tries on a fireman's hat. She looks so cunty.
She does.
Best thing about this film is Jennifer Carpenter.
It's true.
She really does a good job. I, think she should have got awards recognition for The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Anyone who's seen it will know what I'm talking about. She is phenomenal in that film. I'm surprised she didn't do more horror films, actually. I think a lot of people know her either from Dexter or White Chicks.
Oh, okay.
Realistically. But Exorcism of Emily Rose, I'll put it on for you one day. She is so good in that film. I mean, really, really fucking good.
Is she Emily Rose?
She is Emily Rose.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, she's great in this. She is the only bit of camp value we're getting here.
She's got some funny dialogue.
Yeah. She asks all the important questions, with one of them being, one question I'm sure we're all wondering. What's it like sliding down those fabulous poles? She gets to find out.
Yeah, she's like, tell me, Bob, how do you slide down the pole in a skirt? Pantyhose, apparently.
She also manages to convince them to let her film in the showers, where they're all fully aware about one of the firefighters' huge cock. We get way more male skin in this film than I was expecting when I first watched it.
Well, this is close to an hour and a half.
Yeah, so this adds on about 10 to 15 minutes.
Yes.
Of
a
shit.
lot of it, a lot of it is bullshit because it's these opening scenes where we learn about the fire station, the fire department. So it's just full of Bantosaurus Rexes. It's who's got the big dick in the shower. Wait. Oh, there's a lady in the gents' changing room. Well, the best thing though is the Dalmatian. I wish we'd seen more of the Dalmatian.
I'm glad we didn't, because he probably would have got killed.
Maybe. That's true.
But I mean, the best thing about this whole sequence is Jennifer Carpenter, because she's camping it up.
Yeah.
She is, the Gail Weathers of the piece, and she's given us reporter. She's given us camp reporter in a leather jacket and big hoops. Can't
Flirty
complain.
as well.
Yeah. She's got
flirty.
she's got those hug boots on.
Yeah.
That were big in the 2000s.
Yeah.
She's trying to get a bit.
Yeah. She could be a real housewife of New Jersey with that outfit.
Yeah.
And she's feeling her oats. She's like, yeah, let's get myself a fireman tonight.
Yeah. Two firefighters. One that she's got her eyes on in particular is Jake. And George Fletcher. George Fletcher is doing all the heavy lifting for moustache representation in this film.
Yeah.
It's given 70s gay porn star.
It certainly is.
But he's certainly not a 70s gay porn star, because him and Jake are fucking awful together.
Really annoying.
Oh, dude. Oh, I bet she'll sleep with me. Whoa. And admittedly, Angela gives a cunty response like, yeah, I'll make that bet, because they don't know they've got the microphones on and she's listening. But they get the call, the emergency call from the local apartment building, and in the fire truck, Angela's like, most little girls want to be ballerinas or princesses when they grow up. When I was young, I used to tell my mum, someday I'm going to grow up and be a fireman. Tonight, I'm truly living the dream. And the cameraman's like, oh, the siren's too loud, I don't use any of it. And she's like, Scott, I am still living the dream. Yes.
Yeah.
She'd make a cunty fireman.
Yeah, okay. I don't think cuntiness is a prerequisite for being a fireman.
But if it was, she'd get promoted. She'd get the job and she'd get promoted. Now,
Also,
we didn't say anything about Angela in the first film slaying.
She didn't.
She didn't really slay.
She didn't.
Jennifer Carpenter does slay harder.
I feel like Angela in the first film was more professional.
Yeah, she's
I
more
feel
serious,
like
more professional.
She was more serious. She's like, this is my step on the ladder to becoming a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Yeah.
I am going to become the journalist that I've always wanted to be. It sounds a little like Angela in Quarantine never wanted to be a journalist.
Yeah.
This is just a fluff piece. And she really wanted to be a fireman.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know why she just didn't become one. But again, it's a sausage fest at this fire station.
It is.
You know, so hopefully, if these films were made now, there'd be more women there representing.
When they're on the way to the apartment building, Jake's like, oh, we got a 9 on the left, and Fletcher's like, whoa, that's a dude. It's called a chickometer, not a dickometer. It's like, thank you, casual transphobia. It's like, okay.
It's 2008, isn't it?
It's 2008, but 2007, the year before, somehow the characters that these guys are portraying are a lot more likeable. When their dialogue was kept to a fucking minimum.
That's the thing, ultimately, is characters in these kind of films will be more likable, the more quiet they are.
Yeah.
When you're forcing this kind of character development as if it's one of the American Pie spin-offs, Naked Mile being a favourite in this household.
It's certainly not. Just get that out there. It's certainly not.
But it's a sign of the times. It's 2008, and it's also a sign of the Americanization of these.
It's the Americanization.
Foreign language films.
Yeah. We get to the apartment, and the apartment complex was a set, but a fully functioning one with 4 floors. But again, it's this whole thing, and it looks good. You wouldn't know it's a set. But it's kind of like, the original was just so.
It looks exactly like the original.
Yeah, it had that charm to just filming in the same building. You know?
It looks exactly the same because it's meant to look exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't believe that anywhere, and I'm no expert, but I don't believe that anywhere in Los Angeles looks like that.
No.
But it was fit for purpose, you know. In Barcelona, those apartments exist and they work perfectly for the film.
Yeah.
Because it was made by Spanish filmmakers who were well aware of buildings like this and thought, wow, wouldn't this be a cool place to have a zombie film?
Yeah. So in this film, the characters, the old lady who attacks them, Mrs. Espinosa. The landlord is Yuri. He has a wife called Wanda. Other residents include veterinarian Lawrence, who we know is a veterinarian because most of his dialogue, I swear, about 80% of his dialogue is, I'm a vet, I'm a vet, I'm a vet, I'm a vet. We know. Potentially gay opera teacher Bernard and his...
Wait.
What?
He's a vet.
He's a vet. He's a vet. Potentially gay...
Does he always say vet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Opera teacher Bernard, his
so
roommate...
he's not a veteran.
He's a veterinarian.
Veterinarian. Completely pointless. Why this man? Why this
because
character?
We need someone to tell us about the rabies.
No, but why has this character been changed from a doctor to a veterinarian?
I know. Yeah, I know. Sadie, Bernard's roommate, lawyer Randy, who is a new character. He's an alcoholic. There we go. Mother Kathy, her daughter Brianna, and immigrant couple Nadif and Jawahir. Now, not really massive difference in a lot of these characters in their counterparts.
No.
The crew enters with police officers Danny and James, and they're attacked by Miss Espinosa, etc., bites James and Fletcher. The only difference this time is the dog runs out of the apartment for a jump scare.
Yay.
As the residents begin to panic, Fletcher, who remained upstairs with Miss Espinosa, thrown over the staircase, critically injured, etc., Angela and Steve go up there, find a dead girl. Mrs. Espinosa shot by the police officer. Police officer, his only character trait in this film is the camera being turned off. Like, at least there's a little more in the original to that character, but in this one it's constantly turn that camera off, turn that camera off. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
It's really overdone.
Yeah.
So this time we get a little change. We get to see Angela, Steve, and Jake going from door to door, asking residents to gather in the lobby. Whilst doing this, the team finds another resident, Elise, in a similar condition to Mrs. Espinosa, and take her downstairs with the others. Morons. A rat runs towards Steve, and he squishes it with his foot, claiming it was charging towards him. Now, I'm not sure if this was supposed to be a joke in reference to what happened with Danny shooting Espinosa, or if it's just bad acting, the way he's delivering it.
Oh, I just thought it was the rat was probably infected and was gonna bite him.
Yeah, because his delivery was a little off. It kind of made me think he was doing a callback to when the woman got shot in the last scene, which would have been really weird.
No. Elise does vomit right before as well, so it's literally a scene with mine and Gary's biggest horrors. Like, I hate vomiting, and I hate vomiting in films, and Gary hates rats.
Yeah.
So we get both within the space of 2 minutes. But no, I assume that Elise has bitten this rat.
Yeah.
Or the rat has bitten Elise and given her the rabies.
Yeah.
And he was after, I don't want to gender this rat, but the rat was after Scott's leg for a munch. So I just feel like that's... And also, it's like, oh, let's creep people out, let's stamp on a rat.
So people start becoming sick and delirious. The authorities quarantine the building, yada, yada, yada. Angela interviews Brianna. Her mum tries stealing the spotlight. And we find out about Max, the dog. Lawrence recognizes the symptoms are similar to those of rabies. And I can tell you, all rabies symptoms in this film are depicted accurately.
Oh, nice. In the original as well?
I'm not sure. Well, I mean, technically it's the same film.
Yeah.
New for quarantine, though, Fletcher walks out into the lobby on his broken leg.
Oh.
Which is a nasty scene. Great practical effects. Can't really complain about this remake going more because that's the point of Rec. So I'm not mad at that.
Yeah,
I think it's a good scene. Don't know why it's there, but it's a good scene. Angela, Scott, Bernard, and Sadie witness a rabid dog maul Randy to death.
Yeah.
Again, just more over the top stuff thrown in. Fine. I guess just the mention of a dog isn't enough. You've got to see one mauling someone's death.
Yeah, it's clearly
CGI.
Yeah, it's why I'm so confused that there's a veterinarian in the building and there's all these rabid dogs running around and he hasn't been made aware of any of them. Like, rabies does exist within humans. If he was a doctor like he was in the original film, he could still say, these are giving me signs of rabies.
Yeah. Well, they head back to Bernard and Sadie's apartment where they watch the news, which is reporting that everyone was evacuated. Now, that's a good touch, I think. The idea that they're still in there, yet no one knows that.
Yeah.
Obviously that's implied in the original, but just saying it on the news, I think it's kind of creepy. But it's interrupted when they're attacked by Elise, and Scott kills her. My favourite addition to this film. Scott kills her by beating her to death with his camera in self-defense.
I like it in concept.
Yeah.
I thought it looked really hokey. I thought it looked really cheap. And then the blood spatter on the camera is like... It looks really cheap and a bit shit. But I like the idea of it. I like that it happened. I just didn't like how it looked.
So the CDC officers wearing hazmat suits arrive to enter the building to do the tests. So they're testing Fletcher and James. This time around, they drill into Fletcher's head to get a brain sample. Good effect. But they awaken and they attack the officers and Lawrence. The surviving inspectors reveal that Brianna's dog is the reason that the CDC has quarantined the building. Shock. And Brianna gets possessed, bites her mum, starts fleeing.
Brianna, played by Joey King,
Yeah.
a young Joey King,
Yeah.
who we all know from The Kissing Booth,
Mm-hmm.
The Kissing Booth 2, and The Kissing Booth 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she was in The Conjuring as well.
She was.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
I mean, she does a good job.
And she does fine. It's kind of a throwaway character in this one.
It's
not
like an
really.
impression of Jennifer from Wreck. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Which therefore warrants the same compliments because, again, she's not doing the acting like a creepy kid thing and it comes out of
No.
nowhere, so that's good.
Yeah. I feel like it does the same thing where the throwaway characters are just throwaway characters.
Yeah.
It's kind of not the point of the film.
Yeah. The mum keeps telling her to run though in this one, and it's kind of funny. It sounds like her dialogue's kind of like a mum on Facebook writing encouraging things to her kids, like "Run, my girl, go on, run, you run, my girl, run." But yeah, I mean, she just took a chunk out of your face. Also, maybe she isn't quite the girl that you thought she was anymore. But yeah, she bites Danny, forces the others to go back downstairs. The infected break loose. Kathy's killed. Nadiv and Wahir are infected by Lawrence. The remaining group locks themselves in a room upstairs, but discover that both the inspector and Sadie have been bitten. Something different for this one. Bernard attempts to escape the building, but is killed by a sniper outside.
Yeah, this is one of the changes that I also didn't really understand. So to have the TV state that everyone had left the building and to have Bernard so quickly killed by a sniper the moment he even tried to leave.
Yeah.
And this is quite a high window.
Yeah.
You know, not sure what he was going to try to do to escape. It kind of renders the whole thing a little pointless. Because at that point, you're like, okay, so we're just going to die now anyway.
Yeah.
I just maybe that's just the cynical part of me, but because 9 times out of 10, I feel like if I was in a horror film, I would have just given up at some point. Anyway, I'm not final girl material, but I just feel like if the government are so against us, and we're fighting infected zombie-like people in here, am I just best off giving up?
Yeah.
Like just. You know,
it's true. I mean, Yuri deduces that the basement, which connects to the sewers, may be the only way out. Which, I mean, yeah, that's their reason now to keep.
Yeah,
going.
I suppose find their way to escape. Yeah, no, that's true. Actually, I'll yeah.
But it is like you said though earlier as well. Is that I mean, if they got out of there and they were like, we weren't in that building, then what are they going to do with the footage? They can't really show anymore.
Yeah. Unless they find, I don't know, it's like the end of The Howling.
Yeah.
Oh no, I will not spoil The Howling for anyone.
Yuri is attacked and bitten by the health inspector who has just succumbed to the infection. Wanda refuses to leave her husband behind and gets bitten by Sadie. Jake, Angela, and Scott all flee. The trio manage to find the basement key whilst overcoming most of the infected along the way. But Jake is bitten by the infected Yuri, leaving Angela and Scott as the sole survivors. The pair are forced upstairs to the attic apartment by the infected, where they find lab equipment and newspaper clippings belonging to a former tenant. Now, changed for quarantine, the tenant was a member of a doomsday cult that broke into a military's biological facility and stole a biological weapon called the Armageddon virus. The virus is a mutated form of rabies, which is highly contractable and deadly. Now, if you're going to do so much of the film, copying scene for scene, and there's some things you're going to change up, this didn't need changing. This didn't need changing. I think once you start bringing words like Armageddon into it, it's kind of like, oh, okay.
I feel like 2008... America
yeah
wouldn't have appreciated the religious part of
Yeah.
the original, the Vatican,
Mhm.
the exorcism or whatever
Yeah.
part of that was, they probably would have thought that was maybe a critique against Christianity.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely feel that. I feel like the filmmakers thought, well, why don't we just do some sort of biological warfare weapon thing? It's the easier way than offending, what do we call it, the Bible Belt.
Mhm.
I feel like that's probably
Yeah.
the only reason why they did made that change.
Yeah. It just feels a lot more. I know we've obviously had loads of religious horror films over the years, but the whole Doomsday Cult thing just feels a lot more generic. I feel like it's less interesting. It's just like, okay.
But I feel like in the original, and I do feel like Spain is quite a religious Catholic
Yeah.
country, in parts. But I feel like the original does kind of the twist doesn't necessarily paint religion in a good
No.
light. The idea that this girl has been stuck like this and everything's happening because of this guy from the Vatican who's fucked everything up.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's easier just to get rid of that.
Yeah.
And then you don't offend anyone.
Yeah.
Wearing a Make America Great Again cap.
Well, the trapdoor opens from the attic and Scott loses the camera light when an infected boy swats at it. The circling in the attic is dragged out. It goes on so much longer.
We will make it to an hour and a half.
And everything from this point on is just so they really drag it out, this ending.
Yeah.
And, you know, the ending in the original is quick, and it works because it's quick, and it doesn't give you time to think about what the fuck is going on. This really just takes its time. And I don't think it's bad, but it's kind of like, it just doesn't need to be that long.
Yeah.
The night vision's on. They start hearing banging noises inside the apartment. Jennifer Carpenter specifically asked that she didn't see the attic set before filming, so she didn't know anything about what to expect or know how to get around it. So good for her. The source of the noises is a deformed person. Again, same as the original, apparently unaware of them and blindly searching. So in this one, they kind of bring in the law that the person's blind. And they, you know, if they don't see them, they've survived. They can get out.
Yeah.
Need that, really, but okay. Scott drops the camera as the figure attacks him. Angela retrieves it and sees the infected person eating Scott before she's also attacked. She drops the camera and is dragged into the darkness screaming. And it's put all over the marketing.
Yes. Suppose they have to justify putting it all over the marketing by making it a little longer. A bit reminiscent of the end to Silence of the Lambs as well.
Yeah. Which
is incredibly effective.
That's true. That's Quarantine, and you know what? It's fine.
It like I said earlier, it just doesn't justify its existence. Yeah. It makes the film longer, which for me ruins the pacing.
Yeah.
We get bogged down with cock jokes and stuff like that. That's completely irrelevant. And then everything. I just find that everything that's good in the film is because it's taken directly from Rec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they changed it up a little more, this could have actually been good. Because I mean, I'm sure there are other directions you could have gone in with it. If you
do another building,
if you absolutely have to remake it, you know other option. I'm sure there's many things you could have done different.
Yeah, have another kind of put it in an office block.
Yeah, have a different creature at the end.
Yeah,
you know, something. Just change it up a little.
Yeah,
but yeah. Well, let's talk about the camera logic in both films.
Because it's
no
pretty
point
much the
separating them.
same.
Should they have just put the camera down and run away? Is there a good reason to keep filming? When would you have given up with the filming? I think Angela's dedication to filming presents such an interesting theme of how far you'd go to get that scoop.
Yes.
And the late night TV show premise is such a good excuse for filming, and of course the government conspiracy as well. Just fantastic.
Yeah, it's very Heather from Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Where we want to get this all on film, because hopefully I do survive and I can make my documentary,
Yeah.
and it'll be a great success. Having the whatever conspiracy they believe was going on, having that on film, completely makes sense as well. I do find, like I said, the journalistic integrity and search, but I do find there are many times where people physically need help.
Yeah.
And the cameraman, because this is in both films, is just standing there filming.
Yeah.
So, like in Quarantine, when Angela is desperately looking for the keys that they need to save their lives, and Scott's just filming and saying, "Come on, you can find them. You can do
He is
it."
using the torch, the classic found footage reasoning. He is shining a torch on the drum.
Yeah, but I feel like there are moments where he physically could have helped more. And maybe somebody had a torch within that building where everyone lived.
Well, I mean, as far as when I'd have given up, in the original, I'd have given up after the old woman started attacking people. In Quarantine, I'd have fucking given up at the fire station when they were making bets on who's going to sleep with me before the morning. I've been like, hang on a minute, that's not professional. I'm leaving. We're not giving your fucking business a platform. Go fuck yourself.
I feel like there are points in both films where you have enough evidence. So you kind of just like, okay, well, let's just put this somewhere for now so the cameraman can get involved and help in some of the physical activities. So it probably, the moment they realise that they've been locked in, they could have just been like, okay, we've got enough now for the lawsuit.
Realism. So for the original, specifically, I'm going to go forward with this one because it doesn't really count for the remake because it's all Hollywood actors. But for the original, I think it's very realistic to begin with, which makes the more extreme stuff all the more jarring. I think that's why it works so well.
Yeah, I think the characters are quite believable. The idea that neighbors just bitch and gossip about each other as well is very believable. That's not to say, I feel like any of it could happen, but I feel like the circumstances feel very real. The characters, the place, the reactions feel very real.
Most effective scare. I think it's going to be those final 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes. I think the whatchamacallit? What's it come out of nowhere?
The fireman
jump scares. I think the jump scares for me were very effective. As somebody who doesn't appreciate them too much, because I think they're cheap. I think they really worked in Rec, because it's just copied in Quarantine.
Yeah. For me, that lasting image though of the possessed girl at the end, I don't think anything could beat that. That's just in the film. Most likable and unlikable characters. So this I have separated. In the original, I think Angela, Pablo, and Manu are the most likable. And poor Pablo, you never see him, but every time you hear his voice, he's clearly a man who's regretting his life decisions.
Character development is neither film's strong point.
No.
So I put Angela in both films as the most likable. Yeah. Because she needs to be the most likable because she's the heart of the film. You feel like you're going on a journey with her. Yeah. It almost feels at times she's holding your hand like the Jet 2 advert. But it's a bit like that. I mean, she's holding your hand and you're following her through this scare maze. Yeah. So she has to be the most likable. Unlikable in the original, it's of course Caesar.
I just put that everyone. No. Let me finish that sentence.
Oh, okay.
Everyone delivering microaggressions about the Asian couple. Because he isn't the only one who does it.
No.
Like, a lot of those residents had a few microaggressions to throw in.
which is believable.
Yeah.
Which is realistic.
But it doesn't make them likable.
But I mean, that's the point. They are unlikable. It does show bias. It does show racism, xenophobia.
Yeah.
That is, probably still rampant in society now. It would still probably be the same from a lot of people.
Yeah.
If this happened.
Angela and Steve are put for Quarantine as most likable, but I guess really Jake and Fletcher most unlikable in the in Quarantine.
Yeah, they're not funny.
No.
Yeah, take that shit to Bandcamp.
Yeah. And ending thoughts. For me, on par with Blair Witch Project for best found footage ending ever.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic. It gives Blair Witch Project, it gives Silence of the Lambs, 2 all-time greats.
Yeah.
But makes it its own. It uses what was so effective with those films and creates something new with it. The scares are brilliant. The special effects are great. The acting is brilliant. You really feel like you're part of this film. You know, it's found footage at its peak, in my opinion. This ending is, for both, really, is better than anything that came before it within the film. This is the moment. Really draws you in, scares the shit out of you, and leaves you wetting yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know the polite way of saying that. Urinating in the cinema. Which I don't say much about horror, because horror doesn't usually get me like that. But very, very effective.
So let's get to the comparisons. In this episode, we'll have cinematography, scares, and kills. There's no soundtrack in either film. Just a lot of loud sound design. Oh, well, apart from the song at the end of the original.
Thank
that
you.
automatically wins. So Rec, brilliantly shot in a way that makes it feel like it's actually filmed like a TV show cameraman who's unprepared for the situation.
Yeah, I feel like Quarantine feels a slicker.
Polished. It
feels
way
a little
too
more polished. Feels
Yeah.
more like a Hollywood production. I think with Rec, the fact that the camera was probably a little cheaper than the one used in Quarantine works to its advantage.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And both films, I mean, the original one, again, one of the scariest films ever made, with effective jump scares, relentless tension, gory kills with incredible practical effects. And, Quarantine has good scares, good kills, but they're only good because they're the exact same as what we've seen before. So
true.
There's no element of surprise there.
And then the extra ones, the guy being shot, the CGI dog, the camera and Elise. I don't feel like it adds anything to the film.
It doesn't, no.
It's just one of those where this is an American remake. We need to add some extra kills and such. But I don't feel like they add anything to the film.
They don't.
And if anything, they take away from the film.
Yeah. So everything goes to Rec.
Yes.
And for characters, we have Angela, played by Manuela Velasco in Rec, and Jennifer Carpenter in Quarantine. Both got their own merits. I mean, I think Manuela Velasco is a great lead, a determined queen who is determined to get her scoop, but also gives a great scared as shit performance.
Yeah.
A really convincing performance.
Yeah, 2 great performances. I feel character-wise is where the differences lie. Because I think in terms of acting, both actresses are very, very good. They do the scared person in a situation that they don't fully comprehend very well.
Yeah, and Jennifer Carpenter, she's a very well-known actress, but she does the whole watching a real person rather than an actress thing really well.
Yeah, true.
A different type of person to what we get in the original, but she still does it. She still does it good.
Yeah,
and she really slays.
But and Jennifer Carpenter, she was in Debs.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Um.
Love Debs.
Yeah. She definitely slays harder. But I don't know. I feel like with Wreck and Quarantine, I'd sacrifice a slay for more realistic terror, I guess. So I would lean towards giving it to the original.
Really?
It's close. It's very
I
close.
think it is very close. I feel like it maybe would be a little disservice to.
Yeah. We'll do a tie.
Yeah.
We'll do a tie.
Oh, fuck it. Let's do a tie.
Let's do a tie. We have Pablo / Scott, Pablo Rosso in Wreck, and Steve Harris in Quarantine, the characters. So yeah, Pablo Rosso is the actor, and I just got confused because they have the same name. Classic, absolute classic found footage stuff. Right
Yes.
there. How did I miss that? And in Quarantine, he's played by.
Who?
Do you have his name? Steve Harris.
Steve. He's played by Steve Harris.
He's played by Steve Harris.
His name's Scott Percival. Are you okay?
Scott. Oh my god.
Are you alright?
This is a problem with found footage. It gets confusing. Yeah. So Steve Harris in
Switch
Quarantine.
to decaf, honey.
But yeah, bit of a pointless one. We rarely get to see either. We get to see Steve Harris more.
Yes. It's true.
I mean, yeah, Steve Harris just because you get to see him more. I don't know.
Like I said, yeah. I mean, in fairness, is it a character comparison or is it a camera work comparison?
Yeah, well, in which case, I think Pablo Rosso would win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because it's just his voice. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who are we giving it to?
I don't know.
We'll give it to
another tie.
Yeah,
give
we'll
it.
give another tie.
Yeah, give it
We'll
to
give it a tie. Manu / Jake, played by Ferran Terraza in Wreck and Jay Hernandez in Quarantine. I think Manu is so much more likable in the original. I think he's a good character. It's a good performance. And I think Jay Hernandez gives a good performance in Quarantine. But all his dude bro stuff with Fletcher, just like, ugh. Come on, really?
He was in Hostel, wasn't he, as well?
He was, yeah.
Yeah. That's a very dude bro kind of film as well. Yeah, infinitely more likable in Wreck. Absolutely. So sorry.
We'll give it to the original.
Yes.
And finally, Tristana / the infected person, played by Javier Botet in Wreck, and Doug Jones, creature actor legend Doug Jones in Quarantine. Now, I would say this is more of a comparison of who is scarier.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of differences because they look so similar.
Yeah.
But I think just for creating that image and making it so terrifying by all the unnatural movements and so on, I'd have to give it to the original. It's just horrifying in every way, and such a small amount of screen time as well. Doug Jones, I'd say, gets slightly more screen time. With that ending, how dragged out it is, but it doesn't make it more impactful. Doug Jones is great, but the original is just.
I suppose Doug Jones could only ever copy the original.
Yeah, really.
Because nothing else would work. So I would give it to the original.
Yeah.
What do you think in terms of the other residents?
The other residents, I think the
we
original.
could sort of group them together.
Yeah.
I do think the original.
I think the original
because
they're way more realistic.
Yeah.
Than the ones in Quarantine.
I just can't get over the fact that in Quarantine, everything happens because a dog has gone to the vets, and that's what's tipped off the police and the military about the rabies. But there's a whole thing about a veterinarian living in the apartment complex.
Yeah, that's they
don't
shot themselves in the foot.
Is it just for the joke? Because at one point he says, she asks questions, and he says, well, I wouldn't know that because I'm a veterinarian.
Yeah.
I don't really work on humans. It's a whole thing for this joke because it renders a lot of the rest of the film a little confusing.
Yeah.
Because if you lived with a veterinarian, surely you would say, "Hi, mate."
Yeah.
You know, knock on their door and say, "You're a veterinarian.
Yeah.
Would you like some money to
Exactly.
treat my dog?"
Exactly.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Unless I'm being silly, which I
Mhm.
don't think I
I
am.
don't think you are.
I don't understand.
Yeah, it would go to the original.
Yeah.
And for the awards, biggest queen, I give it to Angela in both.
I give it to Tristana in both. Joking. I give it to Angela in both. Yes.
Biggest gasp, for me, it's a tie between the fireman falling to his death and the appearance of Tristana in Wreck.
Yeah, I went with the first glimpse of Tristana in Wreck.
Best dialogue, it's got to be Angela's speech about wanting to grow up to be a fireman in quarantine.
I just went with Fabulous Pole.
And that's camp. We don't like him, but it's Caesar in Wreck.
It's Caesar channeling Mariah Carey and finding his best angle
Yes.
during the interview. Yes, he's a prick, but
Yeah.
there's camp there.
Ratings, I give Wreck 10 messages on Grindr from Caesar calling me Mr. or Sir out of 10.
I gave Rec 8 pigtails out of 10.
I give Quarantine six large fireman cocks out of 10.
I give Quarantine 5 hoop earrings out of 10.
I was hoping you'd go with Fabulous Poles.
I was going to go with Fabulous Poles, but I went with Fabulous Poles for my favourite quotes. And I thought, yeah, pigtails and hoop earrings. That's how we differentiate between the two films.
And Wreck is available on Blu-ray, DVD, video on demand, Arrow Player, Freevee, and Plex. And Quarantine is available on Blu-ray, DVD, and video on demand. If you enjoyed both films, I recommend checking out Wreck 2.
If you enjoyed both films, I recommend checking out 28 Days Later. Originally, I'd said The Blair Witch Project, but 28 Days Later.
Okay. And we are Horror Cult Trash over on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Horror Cult Trash on Twitter. I'm Gaz92 on Letterboxd, Gazmo205 on Instagram, and GazCruise92 on Twitter.
I'm Chris Barker823 on Instagram and Letterboxd.
And we're now only a month away from Gasp Horror Festival. You can check us out on social media at Gasp Horror Fest and get your tickets.
Yes, the temperature's rising. It's getting to summertime, and summertime means Gasp.
Yes.
So
With
make sure you
aircon.
get your tickets. Yes.
Aircon will be in the building.
Yeah.
Give us a rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes like a phone and everything else. It's May. We are in Hagsploitation month.
Yes.
That means on Tuesday we'll be kicking things off with Suddenly Last Summer.
Oh, classic.
And for an original versus remake next month, this month we are going to be
Yeah.
discussing Mother's Day.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. We'll be back same time, same place on Tuesday.
Bye.